Séparés de leur famille, ils se sont battus pour leur patrie. Ils s'en sont souvenus toute leur vie. C'est pour ne pas les oublier que nous sommes aujourd'hui rassemblés. Ils ont donné leur vie pour tenter de faire la paix. En ce dimanche 27 mai, nous pleurons leur âme en leur rendant hommage. Ils ne seront pas morts tant qu'on s'en souviendra encore.
Why were they chosen to come so far from their homes? Because they were courageous. Separated from their families, they fought for the country. They remembered it their whole life. In order not to forget them, we are gathered here today. They gave their lives to try to make peace. And here we are today, the Sunday, May 27th. We honor them as we cry for their souls. They will not die as long as we remember them.
General Jean-Jacques Poc, Commandant of the French Defense Area, will now present his memorial address. Le général Jean-Jacques Poc, commandant la zone de défense nord, va vous présenter son message du souvenir.
Son Excellence l'ambassadeur des États-Unis en France,
His Excellency, the Ambassador of the United States of America at France,
Messieurs les généraux,
ladies and gentlemen, the members of Parliament,
Conseil régional et général,
the generals, members of the regional and general councils,
Messieurs les anciens combattants,
veterans,
Mesdames et Messieurs, dans vos fonctions et qualités respectives.
distinguished guests.
94 ans après les terribles combats,
94 years after the terrible fighting which united them in the blood, American Marines and French soldiers find themselves once more at Belleau Wood to celebrate, through their unfailing brotherhood of arms, the powerful bonds of friendship which exist between our two countries. It is a remarkable story where our national fates intersect at important and tragic times when the freedom of people is at stake. It started at Yorktown and was written down again on the Normandy beaches. It inspires every French and American soldier fighting together in the name of liberty on the current theaters of operations. From this story, the dreadful fighting at Belleau Wood represents one of the most exceptional and symbolic episodes. The most exceptional first, since it was a matter of an extremely violent fight, where the Marines showed for the first time such a level of collective commitment, the proof of an extraordinary bravery and an utter heroism, which have been ever since and all over the world the hallmark of the elite corps. During the 3 weeks of heroic assaults, with the loss of approximately 50 to 100 of its men, that is to say, more than half of its manpower, the 4th Brigade of the Marine Corps, led by General James Harbord, wrote one of the highest feats of arms of this World War, which counted many of them. Moreover, this victory had an immediate impact on the morale of all the Allies. It provides striking proof of the United States of America's resolute commitment into the war and led to the turning point of this awful fight, putting an end to the final German offensive a few kilometers before its arrival in Paris. A symbolic episode then, when these fights in Belleau Wood first saw the 4th Brigade of the Marine Corps taking in and protecting in its lines the brave Red Devils of the 152nd Infantry Regiment, exhausted by 3 days of defense on foot, where 600 of their comrades were killed. After taking in their French brothers of arms, the Marines supported them when the order was given to launch a counterattack. Finally, when the exhausted Red Devils could no longer move forward, they held them up, went past them, went on the offensive, leapt with a crazy audacity into a fight, which was from now on theirs, against his terrific German army, hardened by 4 years of dreadful confrontations. Therefore, this brotherhood which united the French and the American combatants of Belleau Wood came in a variety of forms. It included the instinctive compassion towards the one who fights and suffers for the same cause. It resulted in his welcome, his protection, his support. Finally, it led to the utmost commitments at his sides, at his place, if necessary, in the toughest battle that has to be won absolutely, because it is our common fate that we need to carry. Belleau Wood was not only the feat of arms which founded the Marine Corps of the United States of America. Belleau Wood was a sort of war parable, the striking proof of the virtues of a brotherhood of arms sealed by the blood of young soldiers fallen here in June 1918. Their sacrifice will always inspire the brotherhood which unites our two nations, aiming at the same fate, to promote and to defend the values of liberty which unite us.
General Joseph Dunford, Assistant Commandant, U.S. Marine Corps, Arlington, Virginia, will now present his memorial address. Le général Joseph Dunford, commandant en second le corps des marines américains à Arlington, en Virginie, va désormais vous présenter son message du souvenir.
Bonjour, good morning. Ambassador Rivkin, ladies and gentlemen of the French Parliament and Senate, Madame la Maire de Belleau, General Mundy, our 30th Commandant, generals, members of the Regional and General Council, veterans, distinguished guests, Marines. Thank you for being here this morning. I'd also like to recognize the American Overseas Memorial Day Association and the American Battle Monuments Commission for their diligence over the years in maintaining this final resting place for organizing the ceremony today. I'm truly humbled and honored to join you as we pause to remember fallen Americans and their French comrades in arms. It has become a tradition to gather here each year to commemorate and recall the Battle of Belleau Wood and the events of June 1918. For me and the other Marines here today, this is a pilgrimage to hallowed ground. As a Marine who served in both the 5th and the 6th Regiments of Marines, I'm particularly grateful to be here. This morning, in an effort to provide a fitting tribute to those who fought and made the ultimate sacrifice on these grounds, I could describe the details of the fight and cite the German and the Allied order of battle. I could attempt to capture in words what those here 94 years ago must have experienced. The crackling of rifle fire, the deafening sound of artillery barrages, the smell of cordite, the lingering odor of poison gas, the rat-infested trenches, fear, hunger, thirst, and fatigue, the chaos of close combat. More broadly, I could attempt to address the historical significance of the battle. I could share how a thin red line of United States Marines was all that prevented a major German offensive from breaking the Allied defenses protecting Paris. This morning, as a United States Marine, I could also talk about how important the Battle of Belleau Wood is to the history of our institution. It was here that the Marine Corps transformed from a relatively small force of naval infantry to one of the most feared and respected military organizations of all time. But as I look out at the cemetery in the Garden of White Stone, I'm reminded that speaking about the details of the battle, the descriptions of combat in World War I, and the evolution of the United States Marine Corps is not necessary. It's familiar to most who are here and well documented in the yellow pages of history. More importantly, none of that is what draws us to this place. For Marines, the Battle of Belleau Wood long ago transcended the physical realm and became part of our ethos. Today, Belleau Wood is a spiritual touchstone. It's a name that has become synonymous with the intangible traditions of our Corps. traditions that were so evident here in June of 1918. Traditions like courage, honor, commitment, loyalty, and self-sacrifice. Our real purpose for gathering is to remember and honor those who embodied those intangible traditions, and to reflect on who we are, what we do, and why we do it. We are here to remember, honor, and draw inspiration from Marines like Gunnery Sergeant Fred Stockham. While assisting in evacuating his wounded comrades, Gunnery Sergeant Stockham noticed that the gas mask of a wounded Marine was shot away. Unhesitatingly, he removed his own gas mask and insisted upon giving it to the wounded man, knowing that the effects of the gas would be fatal to himself. In the event, he continued to direct and assist with the evacuation of the wounded until he collapsed and died. We are here to remember, honor, and draw inspiration from leaders like Lieutenant Clifton Cates. After being wounded 3 times, he scribbled a note to his battalion commander from his captured bit of trench saying, "I have only 2 men left out of my company and 20 out of others. I have no one to my left and only a few to my right. I will hold." Since 1918, millions have proudly followed in the footsteps of Stockham, Cates, and the many others like them who fought here. The intangible traditions so evident at Belleau Wood have been carefully passed down from generation of Marines to generation of Marines. These traditions have inspired the success of Marines at places like Guadalcanal, Chosin, Way City, and Fallujah. And they continue to inspire Marines today in places like Sangin and Kajaki. Beyond being a spiritual touchstone for our Corps, Belleau Wood has also come to symbolize the commitment of the American and French people to the shared ideals of liberty and justice. This morning, we remember that we were shoulder to shoulder defending those high ideals here at Belleau Wood, just as we were at Yorktown and just as we are in Afghanistan today. But even pausing this morning to recall the traditions of our Corps or the high ideals of our 2 nations is not sufficient. It's not enough to pause and mark the graves here with flags and wreaths. If we truly want to honor those who fought and died here, each American and Frenchman in uniform will leave here recommitted to carrying on the intangible traditions of those who fought at Belleau Wood. If we truly want to honor those who fought and died here, each American and French citizen will leave here with renewed commitment to our respective nations and the values for which they stand. Each of us will leave here determined to, in some small way, serve our nation and our community in honor of those who have given their all. Ladies and gentlemen, if we do all that, we will have fulfilled the purpose of this monument as envisioned by General James Harbord, the commander of the Marines during the battle. In 1923, a mere 5 years after the battle, he returned to this site and said, "Now and then the veteran will come here to live again the brave days of that distant June. Here will be raised the altars of patriotism. Here will be renewed the vows of sacrifice and consecration to country. Hither will come our countrymen in hours of depression and even of failure, and take new courage from this shrine of great deeds." Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for the distinct honor of joining you. Semper Fidelis and merci.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the wreath-laying ceremony. Mesdames et messieurs, nous allons maintenant procéder au dépôt des gerbes. The first 6 wreaths will be led one at a time. Les 6 premières couronnes seront déposées une par une.
As we begin the laying of the wreaths, I'm here with Mr. Chuck Hunt, who's the Regional Director for World War I for the American Battle Monuments Commission. Sir, what is it like working for an organization that just preserves our history?
It's an honor to work for ABMC and be part of an agency that works very hard to make sure we never forget. We never forget the sacrifice of over 200,000 men and women who are memorialized with us. It allows us to, I find my position very rewarding because it allows me to get engaged with the day-to-day mission of making sure our cemeteries and memorials are beautiful day in and day out. But it also allows us to be involved in some very important initiatives. For instance, the 100th anniversary of World War I will be upon us soon. And we're working very hard on a number of fronts to make sure that's an important commemoration for our nation. For instance, we're working closely with French partners to provide a more secure future for the Lafayette Escadrille Memorial near Paris. Many people regard that as the birthplace of the U.S. Air Force, or commemorates the birth of the U.S. Air Force. We're working on visitor centers at Meuse-Argonne and Flanders Field to tell our nation's story and the watershed event that World War I was for us. You know, it was essentially our emergence as a superpower as a nation. We're enhancing our website to help Americans have more content that will help them reconnect with this very important conflict and that help define our future as a nation. We're working with numerous partners and museums and so forth to make sure other dimensions of the story are told.
Okay, and sir, the ABMC has more than 24 cemeteries and 25 monuments in 15 different countries. So can you talk to me a little bit about those different workers in those countries? The cemeteries are beautifully kept. Can you just talk to me about what they feel when they're working on these cemeteries?
Well, from visiting the cemeteries, I'm struck by the amount of dedication that our staff has to making sure these places are beautiful in the summer when we have many visitors, or in the winter when we don't have that many visitors. Many of these employees have a personal connection to the cemetery. Some are multi-generational, where maybe their grandfather worked in the cemetery and their father, and now they're working in the cemetery. And they feel a strong personal connection, and they do a fabulous job.
Okay, well, thank you, sir, for your time. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Commandant la zone de défense nord au nom de l'armée de terre française. General Joseph Dunford, Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps, in the name of the United States Marine Corps. Today is an historical day for the United States Marine Corps. Representatives from the 5th and 6th Marine Regiments, the 2 U.S. Marine Regiments that participated in the battle and victory of Belleau Wood, are both here to honor their fallen comrades. Because of this rare opportunity, we are making an exception to our normal protocol arrangements and would like to call forward representatives from the 5th and 6th Marine so that they can lay wreaths at the same time. Aujourd'hui est un jour historique pour le corps des Marines américains. Les 5e et 6e régiments de marine ceux-là même qui en leur temps avaient participé à la bataille et à la victoire du bois Belleau, sont tous deux là afin de rendre hommage à leurs camarades tombés au combat. Parce que c'est un événement rare, nous allons faire une entorse aux règles protocolaires habituelles. Les représentants des 5e et 6e régiments de marine déposeront leurs couronnes en même temps.
I'm here now with Sergeant Major Ronald Green, who's the Sergeant Major of Marine Forces Europe and Africa. Sergeant Major, could you just talk to us about why Belleau Wood is so significant for the Marine Corps?
Yes, good morning. The significance of Belleau Wood to the Marine Corps, 94 years ago, America entered World War I, and the Marines came to Belleau Wood. We were the last force that repelled the Germans from Paris. It was about 50 miles from here to Paris, and the Marines were called upon. There were all services from America here, but the Marines were the ones placed in the woods and asked to repel the forces. And when the French were marching back and telling the Marines to retreat, there was one captain, I believe his name was Captain Williams. He said, "Retreat hell, we just got here." There were men like Dan Daly and others here in the woods that had an indomitable spirit, just like those in the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's no different. The spirit of Marines that lived here during that time, it's the same spirit that's fighting in the war today. And we come here today on this hallowed ground to recognize those who've gone before us.
And Sergeant Major, why do you think this place has become sort of a symbol for the Marine Corps?
This is a symbol for the Marine Corps because this is the first time in American history where Marines entered the war in World War I and fought together as a corps. This sort of defines, or not sort of, it actually defines the Marine Corps for the very first time. There are two places in the Marine Corps that we're taught in boot camp, OCS, and throughout training. One is Iwo Jima, but the beginning was right here in Belleau Wood. We earned our name, the Devil Dogs. When we were charging 5 different times and repelled, on the 6th time, we took it down on the Germans, and they called us the Devil Dogs because they understood the spirit. No matter how many Marines you took out, they would just keep coming. And here we are coming back today to recognize that.
Now, Sergeant Major, if you don't mind, could I ask you, would you personally feel coming to this place, they say all Marines try to get here once in their lifetime. I'm not sure how many times you've been here before, but could you talk about what it's like for you personally to be here today?
Yes, I can. You know, as I walked up to the statue on Mike today, and all the Marines and the French were gathered, it brought a tear to my eye. You know, I could almost feel the spirit of the Marines who fought here. To come here today is very significant in my career as it is many Marines who come here every year. I can say I've been to Iwo Jima, and coming here really defines my lifetime, because being a Marine is more than just, you know, a job. It's a career, it's a way of life. It's a way of life for me. And to have come here at the end of my career is really, you know, it brings it all to a closing. And I'm very, very happy to have come here.
Okay, well, thank you, Sergeant Major. Thank you so much for your time. This is Sergeant Major Ronald Green, the Marine Forces Africa and Europe.
Thank you.
Dieu et Monsieur Franck Briffaut, conseillers régionaux de Picardie, au nom de Messieurs les conseillers régionaux de Picardie. Madame Michèle Fuselier, présidente de la communauté de communes de Château-Thierry, au nom de la communauté de communes de Château-Thierry. Group Captain Mark Green, Defense Attaché, Australian Embassy to France, in the name of the Australian Defence Force. Captain Nick Stanley, Deputy Defense Attaché, United Kingdom Embassy to France, in the name of the fallen.
The Aisne-Marne American Cemetery has had ceremonies like this almost since it was created. About 15 years ago is when the ceremony really started to grow into the crowd size we see today. And a lot of that is because of the community involvement. You heard some songs from the children earlier, and you heard a poem that was actually written by a high school student from here in the area, the town called Chateau Thierry. They were also out here, the children and the Marines, placing all of the flags, really just doing everything they can to make sure this is a special day and that those who fought so long ago are remembered.
De Chateau Thierry. Lieutenant General Hellick, Commander of the Marine Forces Europe, in the name of the Marine Forces Europe. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Merriman, in the name of the 80th Division Veteran Association. Mr. Steve Arnold, Directeur Horticole Adjoint, in the name of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. Monsieur Faucheur, président départemental, et Monsieur Le Pollard, vice-président, au nom de l'Union fédérale des anciens combattants et victimes de guerre. Monsieur Soudieu, président départemental, au nom de l'Association des anciens combattants, prisonniers de guerre, combattants d'Algérie, Tunisie.
I'm here now with Lance Corporal Paul Shiraishi. I'm sorry if I messed your name up, Lance Corporal, but I understand that you have a relative buried in this very cemetery. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes, it's my grandmother's uncle. He's actually buried not too far away from there, and yeah.
So why is it so important that you made this trip out here?
Well, as a Marine, I'm always taught that the World War I battle here was really important, and as a relative, it's a big family thing for us as well.
So what do you actually feel as you walk through this cemetery?
A lot of honor, a lot of tradition. It's just happiness and joy, just so I can honor the dead.
Okay, well, thank you for your service, Lance Corporal.
Thank you.
Monsieur Barthélemy Ballester, au nom de l'association Les Fleurs de la Mémoire. Madame de Vaugeler, présidente de l'association Les Fils des Tués, département de la Manche, au nom de la Fédération nationale des Fils des Morts pour la France, Les Fils des Tués. Monsieur Gérard Bazin, au nom de l'association Lorraine Battle Memorial. Mrs. Hellick, in the name...
I'm here with Mr. Tom Cavanes, who's also with the ABMC, from the Regional Director of World War II North. Sir, I understand that, basically I'm asking about World War I, so long ago. Do you think people are forgetting, or do they need to be reminded of it in some way?
Well, I think that after World War I, we made a couple of miscalculations. One was that America, by and large, commemorated its involvement in World War I outside of America's borders. So the American cemeteries, the 8 American cemeteries that were built after World War I, exist all outside of our nation. And unlike the towns in France or in Germany where a large portion of the local community was involved in the war, for America they came from across the seas. It was an expeditionary war. You combine that with the fact that the war was horrible. The atrocities of the war created a situation where the soldiers came back, they weren't interested in talking about it. They were interested in forgetting about it. In a way, they kind of did too good of a job. So when subsequent generations came along, what I'm actually seeing, I think, is a little bit of a resurgence of interest in World War I, where people are looking for those artifacts and those stories that unfortunately are getting harder to find because we missed the opportunity to capture them when it was there.
And what do you think, what role does ABMC play in developing this?
Well, clearly, we're the caretakers, we are the guardians of those commemorative sites that were built right after World War I, and so that puts us, superbly positioned to try to advance any type of initiative to rekindle that memory. But I think that what we're really trying to do is leverage modern technology. We believe that today a lot of young people are very, obviously very web enabled, very iPhone enabled, and what we'd like to do is we've got several initiatives on the way to try to improve our website, to try to use mobile applications, to try to use virtual tours, those types of things, to try to reconnect with the American people that may never have the opportunity to come over to Europe or outside the United States borders to visit these places.
So, sir, how do you personally feel working for an organization like ABMC?
Well, I've been working here a very long time. I'm a person that's also very Francophile. I like Europe a lot, and I think that it's really an honor to me. It's very humbling to be able to represent our country in this way, because I don't think that anybody can deny that that American sacrifice was essential to the period of peace that we've observed since 1944. And to tell you the truth, to be a small part of that is just honestly an honor.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, sir.